Hey, what's good, self-direct investors? I hope you're all doing great, and I want to welcome you back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Jordan, and I'm the mind behind Make More Capital. And today we're going to cover this week in cannabis from December 6th to the 13th. Now, before we jump in, I have a few things to say. If you enjoy this video at any point, please make sure you leave a thumbs up. I really appreciate it as it helps my channel get seen, and you help me a lot by doing that. And then, of course, if you see what I see with the cannabis industry growing in the next few years, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any new videos coming out either on Wednesday or Sundays. And lastly, if you've yet to open up your self-directed tax-free savings account and you are Canadian, there are two links below to Wealthsimple Trade and Quest Trade, Canada's top 2 discount brokers. So if you open an account, self-directed TFSA through there, you get a bit of free money for doing so, and you can always reach out to me and I'll help you navigate the platforms and help you get started on the right foot. Without further ado, let's jump in. We've got a lot to cover this week, and to the untrained eye, any new investors that jumped in might be terrified and think, oh no, we've got to sell, it's going down. But this is why context is so important. There's nothing to worry about, as we've seen just a massive run-up since September. So, what we're seeing in the last 5 days is a few things accumulating. It's just the fact that after the House vote on Friday, there was really no news about cannabis. There's been no new news, and that is why, investors, or traders, I should say, are getting impatient and likely selling. The other thing is that investors who got in, before September or a long time ago are selling and taking profits. That's another reason why we're seeing the sell-off. So again, long-term, big picture, we're in the best spot we've been in a very long time. So as long as you're invested in one of Canada's top LPs or one of the top US MSOs or in an ETF invested in the US MSOs, hold strong, you've got nothing to worry about. As we wait for more catalysts to come, which could be, of course, Mitch potentially voting on something 68% of Americans actually want, and letting the vote happen in the Senate. That would be amazing. We've also got the January 5th runoff, multiple things. So, until we wait for some more news, or at least just some sort of catalyst, we're in a good spot. We just got to be patient. Now, there was a bill passed this week, actually. The House approved a second bill in 2 weeks, which is amazing considering they just voted to federally legalize cannabis, and that did get the attention. Now, unfortunately, this one did not get as much attention. I hadn't heard about this until later in the week. I knew the vote was happening on Wednesday, but still, for the House to approve a second cannabis-related bill, especially for research, what we need the most, after voting to federally legalize, it at least is showing that one of the two parties currently right now is proving to be more in favor of what the people want, as opposed to their own political agendas. And I think that's very important to consider just during these times. And I mean, the main thing is, yes, we need to promote research into the plant, in part by allowing scientists to access cannabis from state legal dispensaries. No duh. So this bill was huge, and I just want to point out, because for 5 decades, for 50 years, politicians have made the excuses, you can't end prohibition because we don't know how dangerous cannabis is. Well, why don't we research it? You can't because it's illegal. Well, why don't we change that? We can't because we don't know how dangerous it is. It's the gateway drug for the kids. I'm a terrible parent. These corrupt politicians, you can't lie yourself out of reality for so long. And I'm so happy that we're finally getting to this point where we realize, more people are waking up to the fact that we just need to study it more. And so this is an older article, but this bill, I guess it was a U.S. Congressional Committee approved this act in the beginning, and then it's just passed the House. But I just wanted to point out is that the aims of Medical Cannabis Research Act are twofold: to lower the regulatory barriers to approval for researching cannabis, of course, reducing unnecessary laggards, approval wait times, costly measures, things like that, and to increase the supply of medical-grade cannabis to legitimate researchers. This was the most important thing. And what blows my mind is that when we scroll down and see how much money, let's say, for 2018, they had $1.5 billion. And 48% of that went into harm reduction. And what they deem as harm reduction down here is research on effects of cannabis use, exposure during pregnancy, infancy, determinants of use, tolerance and withdrawal prevention, and treatment of substance use disorder. I hate that word. It's addiction. We got to stop softening language. George Carlin was right. This has to end. And then we're heading into 1984 if we don't stop this. But addiction and withdrawal. But this is the truth behind this. There has been countless studies over the last century. And let me just refer to my other series that I made.
It's been over 100 years since the 1894 Raj Commission, the Seiler Commission, the LaGuardia Commission, Nixon's Schaefer Commission, Canada's Ledane Commission, Ganja in Jamaica, and the California Research Advisory Commission, all saying the same thing. To this day, there is no evidence to back up any false U.S. government claims about cannabis.
So these studies have been conducted all by either the British Raj Commission in 1894, when the global power was Britain, to over the last century. the US has done many studies trying to find that cannabis is toxic or bad for the human body, and there has been zero evidence. So at a certain point, it's just like, you just gotta wake up and you gotta admit, like, look, we were wrong. And it's gonna be crazy when, America finally admits to the war on drugs and all this kind of being having an ulterior motive. But, when you actually consider that only 2% of this money is going into the cannabis therapeutics, more of it is going into studying the endocannabinoid system, a system we all have in our body. That's mandatory. Cannabinoid therapeutics, that's important. But like cannabis therapeutics, THC is the miracle medicine. The scientist, Dr. Ralph Mechoulam, who discovered THC in the 60s, says that cannabis is the best overall medicine on the planet that we know of. And it's just amazing that, few individuals know this, but it's the collective foolishness that doesn't, because they listen to the propaganda, sadly. But the good news is just that we're at a point where we've never been to, where enough money is getting in, and you just can't ignore the fact that we don't know anything about this plant any longer. We know that there's no negative evidence towards it, and like any other substance, it's just a substance. It's the user and their past which causes whether that user might get have addictive habits to it and whatnot. So it's so important that we are getting to this point where we're moving out of this, and it's ultimately government, people asleep at the head of government who are basically paid to keep quiet and not change things the way they are. It's these people that are eventually going to start waking up too, because politicians need to get reelected, and that's something I'm going to cover on Wednesday next week, because I couldn't fit it all into this. But once politicians start answering to the public, because the public realizes that this is jobs and tax revenue, then politicians start running to get reelected on it. You can't ignore that once we get to that point. Now, Mexican lower house delays the vote on cannabis bill. This sucks, but hey, if you're a long-term cannabis investor, this is nothing new. You've dealt with delays and big bureaucracy, of course. You realize as an investor that things don't move as quickly as you think they would. They take a long-ass time to develop. So, unfortunately, they delayed this until 2021 to give lawmakers more time to study it. This source as of Tuesday. And the main thing is that they want to, it will not be in session again until February. So the soonest we could see some sort of action in Mexico would be February. This would be amazing, because this would make Mexico the third country to legalize cannabis after Canada. Then you've got this trifecta of like Canada, Mexico, and the US is not legal, but they claim to be the freest country in the world. Well, they can't pass. Unfortunately, it seems like only Mexico, as of late, can actually get a bill to decriminalize cannabis or to legalize cannabis in the Senate and vote on it. Even if Mexico doesn't have a 68% of the population agreeing that this needs to be done. So Mexico's a bit more of a democracy than the US right now. That being said, the legislation responds to the Supreme Court order mandating that the use of the drug be regulated. So this is something that makes me optimistic, because nevertheless, the legislation is ultimately expected to pass. This may be delayed until February, but hey, look, the UN was supposed to vote on cannabis and rescheduling it last April. Last December. It went on to April 2020 because of COVID, and they only had that vote finally passed December, which I covered in the last video. So, nevertheless, this legislation will pass. So, as long as this gets brought up in February or March, we're going to have another big catalyst. We just got to hope that what happens going forward ends up working in our favor. Now, this one it's so funny. I have to point this out. Canopy to shut down 5 Canadian facilities to lay off 220 in latest cost-cutting move. This is why you do not want to get your information from the news media. You have to do your dirty work and grind and do your due diligence and find what's really going on, because just watch this. I can't...
Let's talk about your quarter. A good quarter, but challenges remain. Analysts note that they really want to see you kind of consolidate your market share here and bring the cash burn down. Just give me your characterization of how things are going for you.
Yeah, I think they're going really well. We have...
Okay, so, yeah, they're going really well, David Klein, when their total revenue, you can't even reduce the cost of revenue to less than what you're making. So it's costing you more money than it is money that you're actually making. So this year they've yet to turn a profit, and they've burned through $1.5 billion this year. And unfortunately, we can see that cash burn has just increased every single quarter, and they have not been profitable for quite some time. So, yeah, no, they're not in a good spot. And just to go forward, he's going to say that, I'm not going to show the whole video, but then he says, we're improving our market share. Well, this was as of December 27th.
Aurora takes the total cake, featured 9 times, however, Aphria snagged 7 higher quality rankings, stealing first place in Ontario and Alberta, with Village Farms coming in third with 4 features. How much Canopy or Kronos do you see on the list? 1 of Canopy. That's it. See, it means nothing to be the biggest if people don't buy your brand.
Correct.
And if we look at another data set from Headset, we can see which company is taking the most market share, which refers to the percentage of overall sales within a province's market. In Ontario, the list goes Aphria, Aurora, Redecan,
all the way down here.
Village Farms. For Alberta, the list goes
all the way down here. So, hey, no, without a doubt, they're trying to improve, but they've got a long way to go to compete with the other companies that did it better. And this is the last part, is just because in this video, he does mention then, well, you know, we're getting the beverage things under control, because that's what people want. Well, from April 1st to June 30th, dried flower, vapes, and pre-rolls sold the most by far, and beverages didn't even crack $1 million. So that's why it's so important. I just had to show this and prove that, like, I hope you don't mind, I'm learning ukulele, that's why I get all these popping up. But, it's like, you cannot trust what you hear on here, because you can be bag holding Canopy forever, and, you know, they've only got downside from this point going forward, I think, because they're still valued at $13 billion or something crazy like that. So anyways, that's something I just had to prove. It's just like, when this pops up, it makes me feel so good to at least have been watching for you know, 2-3 years, paying attention to this industry and being able to say, like, no, David, you're full of shit. This is nonsense. Your company is in big trouble, and you might just need to get bought up by Constellation Brands. Now, this new survey finds changing cannabis consumer and consumption habits. This is huge. Nearly half of adults, including parents, are swapping alcohol for cannabis since the start of the pandemic. Now, I guess Curaleaf, well, Harris Poll, on behalf of Curaleaf, did a survey on consumer products and finds that 42% of adults aged 21 and over who have ever consumed cannabis have started to increase their consumption since the pandemic. Now, there are a lot of practical reasons for this when you think of cannabis as the best medicine on the planet overall. According to the survey by the independent pollster conducted online by 2,000 adults aged 21 and up, many reasons they've chosen to start or increase their consumption is to reduce stress or anxiety. Yeah, no duh, that's what the plant does. To relax, very helpful, and to help them sleep. That's the main reason I use cannabis in the evenings before I go to bed, is because unless I don't, my brain just thinks, and I end up laying there for hours. I can't fall asleep. Cannabis turns that off for me. I'm so grateful for it, and I can't express that enough, and that's another reason. And I just have to reference, when Canada was going to legalize, Deloitte did a study, and they're like, what would be your reasons for using recreational cannabis? To get stoned, eh? For the kid, and the kids see you? Of course not. That's never been the reason. And it's just so funny when you don't associate cannabis with crime, you don't think of crime at all, because you know, that was a created narrative. So why would Canadians use it? To help relax or sleep, to reduce anxiety or stress, the two reasons why Americans say they would, to have fun with friends, to improve mood, alternative to alcohol, make activities more interesting, medical reasons, increase creativity or expressiveness, to heighten senses, improve sex life, and help connect with others. Like, those are fantastic reasons to use cannabis. And again, it's always in moderation. It's never the substance, it is the user. We know that. So, last thing to get into is these numbers, because regardless, hey, if you were to look here and seriously think that your investment is in trouble, then you certainly need to do a bit more educating and research into the long-term outlook of, you know, where we're actually probably heading again, because Eastern cannabis markets show strong growth. So if we look at Illinois, Maryland, and Massachusetts, this does include, for the most part, medical and recreational. But October 2020 sales in Illinois for medical and adult use totaled $108 million. Year to date through October, sales have reached $804 million. So Illinois is already on pace to do $1 billion in a single year, and they've only legalized adult recreational use for 1 year. Now, if you want to, I'll leave the links in the description so you can read more into these, but I'm just going to cover kind of the highlights. I don't want to make this too long. In October, cannabis sales in Maryland for medical, they don't have recreational adult use yet, $42.8 million, over 6% from September, and compared to the previous October, Maryland sales grew 86%. Unbelievable! And then year to date through, sales reached $365 million. Over like a massive increase from last year, but again, just wait until adult recreational use enters these markets, and I'll show you my spreadsheet at the end, tie this all together, and we're in such a good spot, folks. And October 2020 for Massachusetts, cannabis sales and adult use reached a combined $104 million, growing by 3% since September, and year to date they're up to $717 million. So this is fantastic, and this is what we're seeing on the East Coast, and this is just, you know, New Jersey's going to start soon, and then New York's going to get jealous, and Connecticut, and all of these states, you know, Pennsylvania, Maryland are eventually going to do adult use, I imagine, because the tax revenue is just so, you can't ignore it. And then cannabis sales in 5 Western states grew of excess of 30% during October. This is massive. But so when it says 30% of October, this is year over year. So as of last year, it's up 30%, which is massive because, again, this is a compounded annual growth rate of 30%. Unbelievable. So we're going to look at these 5 states, but the overall sales growth from a year ago among the 5 Western range from 30 to as high as 39. So Colorado grew by 34% from 1 year ago. Nevada increased 32%. California has done a tremendous Okay, I guess I might have forgotten to put this article in here, but I did find an article, or no. Okay, so California is on pace to do their first $1 billion month, but Oregon actually, as of this year, has accumulated their first total $1 billion in revenue with cannabis. So that's huge. I think I might have included that in my last video, actually. But so anyways, we'll get into the nitty gritty. Arizona, October 20th, cannabis sales for medical dispensaries rose to 89.3. And remember, Arizona just voted to legalize adult recreational use, which will start, I think, in March. And I will mention that next Wednesday once I put up the next video. But 5%. And then compared to the previous October, up 39%. Sales have reached 856 million. These numbers are incredible, folks. And for Arizona, that's just medical. California sales, October 2020, cannabis sales for state retailers have reached 317 million. And is this for adult recreational use or health? Yeah, it would be total cannabis sales for state licensed retailers. And then year-to-date sales have reached 2.9 billion. So never mind, they're way past, California's way past that. So it must have been for Oregon that I was thinking of that came up. Now, Colorado, during October 2020, sales in Colorado adult use and medical reached 203 million, declining 2% from September. Now, the decline month over month is not a big deal because you just want to see what it's grown year over year. Compared to the previous sales, October sales increased by nearly 34%, and the combined sales have reached $1.8 billion this year. It's just unbelievable. And so again, any state that has medical and recreational use legalized, you will have the combined revenues, and then any state that doesn't have adult recreational, you will just see the medicinal ones. In Nevada, dispensaries generated 82 million in sales. Compared to October of 2019, sales grew by over 32% compared to the trailing month. And year to date, they're up to 607. So all of these states, if they don't hit $1 billion this year, they're hitting it next year. And I just can't wait to show you the spreadsheet to kind of solidify that. But lastly, Oregon. Yes, this is where it elaborates on the video of last week, but cannabis sales in Oregon, medical and adult use, reached 98.6 million in October, just that 1 month, declining 1% from September. And I just want to point out that we're seeing declines month over month, but hey, where's the stimulus check? Consider we're in a recession. We're in a global pandemic, and these companies are still performing this well. So just think when times are good again and the boom comes back and, vaccines get out there, people get better, and just the whole kind of fear around the coronavirus recedes a bit, how this can take off. My goodness, folks. And so October 20th, just to end, and year to year, Oregon has reached 922 million, growing. And so Oregon will surpass 1 billion this year based on their trajectory. And so last thing I just want to point out is that cannabis is now Maine's biggest agricultural commodity. This is what I see becoming every state, could be every country's, because the use of THC in all different, THC, CBD, hemp, cannabis, in all different ways of life is massive. And just to think, if we were to replace coal in the pyrolysis process, in the incinerator of burning for energy with hemp stock, we could replace dirty energy, fairly quickly. And if all countries started to grow hemp in the summer months, grow as much as they can, and then if any country, runs out of hemp, then countries that have it can exchange it to others. But just that way we can phase out fossil fuels way sooner than people could imagine. And that's that's something that I've learned. If you know anything different or know that that's not true, then definitely put that in the comments, because I'd love to start a discussion on that. But everything that I've read and I've learned, I don't see any reason why we can't just do that and substitute hemp for our for biomass energy and pretty much eradicate, dirty energy over time. But just wanted to point out that Maine is known for its blueberries and potatoes, but cannabis has surpassed that because its medical cannabis sales totaled 221 from January to October. And of course, Maine is a tiny, tiny little state. And this, and this compares to 184 million of potatoes. So this quickly, cannabis has risen to the top. And I think this is just the best way to end this. I'll show you my spreadsheet out. I won't hold out on that. But we've learned that there's no matter what, Americans are going to get their cannabis. Yes, we know that, right? No matter what, Americans are going to get what they want. For ages, for millennia, people have consumed cannabis, and they're always going to get it. So why keep it illegal any longer? It's time to legalize, regulate, and tax. So last thing I want to point out is the spreadsheet. So I will leave this as a link below, and I'm just going to be filling this out over the years because I'm excited to see where Canada goes with it, and I'll probably eventually start adding in every single individual state. But I just want to show a few things here so that you know what you're looking at. These are total recreational sales for Ontario and Alberta, the two highest grossing provinces in Canada. Now, Ontario, though, has a population of 14.5 million people. Alberta has a population of 4.5 million people. So Ontario has more than 3 times the population. And for a long time, Alberta sold a lot more. Why? Because Alberta, from the get-go, just opened up a lot of stores to supply the demand and cut out the black market, whereas Ontario didn't. For 14.5 million people, they had 50 stores for the first year. It's absolutely nonsense. That's government trying to do business for you. So as we've seen, the yellow indicates where, let's say, Alberta was actually selling more than Ontario, and then at some point Ontario flips the switch because the population. But so that's what I'm tracking here. Now in this column, we've got Canada from the start, the first month, to Colorado from their first month. So if you see here, I'm just trying to show like how Canada's keeping pace with Colorado. But if we obviously look at what Colorado's done in its first year, up 1,384, up 123 from the second year, or up the second year from the first year, up 68% the third year from the second year. And like Colorado has just not stopped. And this is what I foresee every single state doing. Like Illinois is already almost at $1 billion. Oregon's hit $1 billion. Cali's at $1 billion. Every single state is going to get to this point. Because if Colorado can do it with only 5 million people, obviously tourism there helps, but it can be done. And when we look at Illinois, this is just recreational also, not medicinal. So with recreational and medicinal, Illinois is very close to breaking $1 billion already. And if that happens, the news will be huge. But look at this, out-of-state sales. These are people driving from outside of Illinois to get into Illinois to access legal cannabis. And this is just where like, yo, it's coming, folks. We've come this far, so stay patient. I'm really hoping for some interesting news and developments over the next few weeks. Hopefully a Senate vote, because again, for functioning democracy, you've got to let your Congress vote on something 68% of the population wants. Otherwise, that's not a democracy anymore. I'm not going to call it anything. I'm going to let you decide. But folks, I just wanted to say, I just hope you found this valuable. Make sure you leave a like if you enjoyed this video. And if you have any questions or comments, please put it below. Let's start a discussion. And I just think, folks, this is a generational opportunity. And the hardest part about investing is being patient, right? So just know that we're in good hands. And we've seen this growth with Colorado. We have the example. Canada's slowly on its way. And as more states open up, the floodgates are going to open. So have a great weekend, everybody. And I'll see you on Wednesday.